Near-death experiences. They're fascinating. And in this one, I will share with you how I plan on creating my own near-death experience using a 40-foot tree, portable fans blowing exactly 17 miles per hour, and bubbles that you can blow. That will get me there. Maybe this is just the Hollywood effect on me, but I'm convinced that there's been a period of time, maybe even currently, where there's been some dude in his evil villain lair where he's literally just killing people and resuscitating them as much as possible so that he can hear as many near-death experiences or pre-death visions as possible. It's pretty dark to think, but also highly possible in my opinion, and crazy to think about. But near-death experiences are fascinating. NDEs, as I will probably refer to them throughout the duration of this video. I've been fascinated with them on and off throughout my life. For the last couple of years, I've kind of just written them off as not valid because I just kind of tend to believe that there's so many chemicals firing off in your body as you are dying or as you are not experiencing a heartbeat for 20 minutes or whatever the NDE might be, that you're probably not really seeing anything and that you're just hallucinating this whole experience. But lately I've just kind of been thinking that that's the closest thing that we have to some sort of out-of-body or afterlife experience that, what else are we going to look at? What other type of evidence is there to even monitor in regards to that? Plus, it's pretty amazing how many of the NDEs are similar. How many people will say that they experienced the exact same thing or very similar things. And also, as always, I will be working on strength. Will I be making any progress? Well, the last 2 months of videos would indicate no, I will not make any progress. But I'm going to keep trying because I will make progress eventually. Just had a couple of setbacks and eventually I will get to where I'm trying to go, which again is the 1,000 pound club. If you're one of the rare few that have been watching since the beginning of this channel, that was the original goal. And I actually think that I could have hit it by now if I did just buy more weights and I just went up in my deadlift because I maxed out on my deadlift. But I'm determined to get there through squat and bench press. So we're going to be working on squats and doing probably some pull-ups or rows today. Back and legs, baby. But we are warmed up. I am doing a 1 rep max here for the squat, going back to RPE training, and we'll go from there. Squats, more than any other lift, always surprise me when I'm able to get up to a certain amount of weight, just because when you're warming up, for me, with squats, I can be at 200 pounds and feel like, holy shit, this is really heavy. I don't know how I'm going to get to my 1 rep max doing this, but you just keep putting more weight on there and you lift it and then more and you lift it and eventually you just keep going until you stop or you break your back and die. I just choose to stop. Another reason why I wanted to talk about NDEs is because my stepmom sent me a video of someone talking about an NDE where this woman was in a hospital bed and she died for a certain amount of time. I think it was 10-20 minutes, somewhere in there. But she says that she floated up from her body and she was looking down on it, which again is a common theme in these NDEs. But she saw a red sticker on top of the ceiling fan in the hospital, and when she came to is another thing. They all say that they still have some level of consciousness, so I guess it's not even coming to, it's just returning back to the body. She told them about it and they got a ladder and went up there and there was the sticker. So those are extremely fascinating. I'm a skeptic. I question everything, so part of me is like, well, there's evidence in everything that things are corrupt and that people will make up stories or tell things in order to get a certain outcome. So I can't help but think that, with cases like that where they talk about something specific happening while they were out of body and then they go on to prove it later. I like to believe that. There's a lot of comfort in believing these kind of stories that you still have consciousness after life, and people experience a lot of warmth and joy during these NDEs. Within that same video, they talk about another person saying that they were dead for 3 days, or they were pronounced dead for 3 days, and during that time, they floated above their body. They actually followed their family home and watched them do things around the house. And when they came to, they were able to describe what they were wearing, what they had for dinner, and those sorts of things. And for some reason, that person wasn't considered a stalker. I don't know, maybe it's because they're related, I guess, but that sounds like a stalker to me. But these experiences are very fascinating to me, and there's a strong part of me that would like to experience one of these. I think all of us probably feel that way. If we could guarantee that we would survive and come back, I think pretty much all of us would go through one of these. But then you remember the risk that it takes if you were to actually do that, and it kind of gets a little morbid. You don't really want to do that. All right, moving on to 85% of the 1 rep max here. I'm going to try and do 4 or 5 reps of these, but I don't want to push too hard. I want to keep the RPE around a 7 or an 8. So I'm only going to do 3, hopefully 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that's the other side of squats that are pleasant, is when you go back down after doing your 1 rep max, it feels a whole lot easier. I listened to another NDE story today that was extremely tragic. It was a guy who was driving with his wife, his 7-year-old, and his newborn, and he thinks he fell asleep at the wheel, crashing, and his wife died and his newborn died. Fortunately, the 7-year-old lived, but it's a nightmare scenario. Half your family dies and it's your fault that it happened. But the amount of peace that he was able to get over time from his NDE is pretty amazing, and it's really just kind of the way that we all would like to be in an ideal way. Being able to forgive yourself and deal with the guilt and move on and just live the best that you can. He was handicapped from it too. I think he said he lost his right arm and one of his legs. So just absolute nightmare of a story. But the overall message of it is very beautiful. You got to live for the moment and appreciate what you have while you got it, because you never know when a moment is going to be your last, or a last one of one of your loved ones. And that's something that I've talked a lot about on this channel, is the perspective of never knowing when your time may come. That's a kind of a big comfort for me in a lot of ways, but specifically with doing these videos is, just getting over the fear. And I wasn't scared to do these videos, but a lot of people are scared to put themselves out there. But it's a good reminder of how stupid that feeling is, and how you should just flat out ignore it until it goes away. Because who cares? You could die in an hour or tomorrow or whatever, and none of it will matter anymore, and eventually none of it will matter anyway. But something that seems to be common throughout all these NDEs is just how positive the perspective of these people coming out of them are. I don't think I've ever listened to an NDE story where they had just completely shattered their lives and they were depressed forever and it ruined everything. It's like everyone talks about how they felt love and comforted and peace and were one with the universe, and just all these things that we all want to hear, which is pretty remarkable. Again, the skeptic in me makes it feel like it's a trap, like you're just seeing these things because that's what you want to see. But the hopeful in me is that they are seeing reality, or at least the reality that we can't comprehend, and that what they're seeing is actually real, and that we all will get the chance to experience that someday. 1, 2, 3. These squat reps probably look a little bit harder than they actually are. I'm not coming out of the bottom of them real explosively, just because I know that I have a tendency when I get to the bottom of my squats to kind of shift. So I'm really focusing on trying to prevent that and keeping the bar as steady as possible when I'm coming up. But they're about an RPE 8. I could probably do 2 or 3 more sets, or two reps more of what I'm doing. Another NDE that I listened to today was really fascinating. This woman was talking about an experience she had when she was 6 months old. And obviously the skeptic in me is firing strongly on that one, that you're having something that you can remember so vividly from 6 months old. But man, who knows? We have no idea what conscious is. You know, maybe she's telling the truth on this. We have no idea what consciousness is. That's what I meant to say. But her story is she was 8 years old, and there was a red laundry basket that gave her a really weird feeling. Long story short, she was not forced, but she had to interact with that red laundry basket, and then when she touched it, it triggered the memory that or the experience that she had when she was 6 months old. And she died briefly during that time, and she talks about how she left her body and she became one with God, with the universe, and again, God, not necessarily in the Christian sense, but just a greater being, power, consciousness than something we understand currently. But she talked about the different thoughts that she could have and how she could think, as many different thoughts at one time as she could, be it 1, 5, a billion. How she could understand language. Being a 6-month-old, she could hear the people watching over her while she was dying. She could hear what they were saying. But the fascinating part of that is obviously the consciousness experience of being in different dimensions and being able to go in, the way that she described it, go into different experiences and feel them exactly how they were. She talked about how she connected with her mom, and she could feel how distraught she was because obviously her mom thought that she was dead. Well, I guess from a scientific perspective, she was dead because she stopped breathing. But that's always kind of been my ideal version of what the afterlife would be, if there is one. It's not a religious Christian or any type of religion that I've come across so far, just because there's things that I still don't agree with in Christianity, for example, because that's just the religion that I'm the most familiar with. But her experience of just talking about merging with a greater consciousness and just merging with the universe and seeing different dimensions just makes more sense to me. With the Christian side of things, I've never been able to wrap my head around the fact that an all-loving being beyond our comprehension would create a bunch of children only to send a significant portion of those children to hell for eternity, an experience that we can't even imagine. That just really doesn't make sense to me from any level. But hey, believe in what you believe in. And that's the beauty of life, is that we can just choose what we want to believe if that's what suits our feelings and our desires. So, I find a lot of comfort in some of these NDEs that talk about just joining a greater consciousness and being one with the universe. And that sounds so hippie to say that out loud, and I guess it kind of is, but something happens, whether we just kind of puff out of existence or we do go somewhere. I don't see why there's any greater evidence to one or the other. People that experience these things, they did go somewhere. Something did happen to them, because scientifically speaking, they were pronounced dead. There was no pulse, there was no brain activity. Everything was just dead in the sense that we understand it. And then they come back. So I don't know how you explain that. Richard Dawkins is a proponent for there's just oblivion after this. There's just death, and or not death. There's just dark. Well, it's just non-existence. That's what it is. And he thinks the evidence of that is the fact that when the body dies, it's just there's nothing there. You can tell that it is just a meat shell at that point. And he thinks that's evidence of oblivion. And I don't know, if you got to choose one or the other, why wouldn't you choose the the hopeful feeling of all-encompassing love and life after death? That just makes us feel better, I think. Dawkins says that he actually does feel comfort in oblivion, and it makes his life now more meaningful, and there's a really good point for that. But I do think it's interesting that we do kind of just, we gravitate towards the things that we want to feel and we want to believe. And, if non-existence is more comforting to him, then good for him. I don't really understand how that's the case. That's very sad to me. But if you do believe that, and you can allow that to not cripple you and depress you, but actually use that as a reason to enjoy the moment and appreciate the things that you have, then you're just accomplishing the same thing as a religious person anyway. So they're both just two different beliefs that are giving you the same type of benefit. So you really just got to find what comforts you, I think, because there's just really not any evidence to me of what happens after this. So you just got to keep your eyes open, keep your mind open, and find out what feels good and sounds good, because that's just kind of what we're all doing anyway. This RPE training is so funny because my 1 rep max is not nearly high enough to where these percentage changes as I'm supposed to decrease the weight just don't make any difference. Because my 1 rep max today on the squat was 303. I have gotten 323 in the past, but building back up to that. So you do the 1 rep max, and then like I said, 85% of the 1 rep max is what I just did, and now I'm doing 80%. So in my mind, it's like, oh good, I get to lower the weight. It's not going to be, it's going to be a little bit easier. But, it goes from 253 to 243, so 10 pounds, and I'm supposed to do 7 or 8 reps. So it's actually getting harder. But it's mind fuckery on that one. I guess for some of these people that are doing 800-pound 1 rep maxes, then, I guess 5% would be 40 pounds. But when you're lifting that much weight, then 40 pounds probably feels like what 10 does to me. At one point in my life, I was pretty convinced that gratitude is the most important emotion that you can feel on a regular basis. And then the reason for that is just because when you're feeling genuine gratitude, it really is it's pretty remarkable how good it makes you feel. And in a sense, you almost feel invincible, and you just feel nothing but positive emotions. And I think a big part of the reason why I felt that way, or I do feel that way when I do feel extreme gratitude, is just because it does make you feel like you're in the moment. Because if you're grateful for something, it does just make you feel really present. I don't know if I feel that way about that emotion anymore, but the reason I bring that up is because I think that's again going back to these NDEs. That is a big takeaway from a lot of these stories. Is just the amount of gratitude that they feel after they have these experiences, and the fact that they appreciate everything so much more. And peace ties into gratitude to me. If you're feeling extremely grateful for the relationship you have, or if you don't have a good relationship, then you could just be grateful that you have a roof over your head. And if you really delve into that, I think most of us have a tendency to be grateful for something and then just kind of move on to maybe what you don't have. It's super easy to underappreciate things as human because we grow accustomed to it. We adapt and we move on to something new. Adaption is one of the superpowers that all humans have. I think it's pretty remarkable what we have. So it's a positive and a negative thing. If you're in a life-threatening situation, or you've hit rock bottom, the ability to adapt is very beneficial in that moment. But if you've got a really good life and you've been living it for 6 months to a year, it's super easy to have that adaptation take you the wrong way. And it's like, well, I haven't been progressing, I haven't acquired anything, I haven't improved my life in a noticeable manner. And I think that for most of us living in first world countries, like America, if you live in America like me, it's just super easy to fall into that trap. So maybe all you do have is a roof over your head. Maybe you're in debt, maybe you have no relationships, or whatever myriad of bad things could be happening to you. But if you just sit there and think about how good it is to have a roof over your head, and you really just try and focus on that, you can feel a lot of gratitude for that. Go imagine if you don't have a roof over your head and you're living in Alaska and it's winter or something like that, or you're in the desert and it's nighttime. Just anything. It's there's a lot of people throughout history, and even in modern life, as far as I'm aware, people will well, I was going to say that people tell you that there's still plenty of homeless people out there, but you can just see it. I live outside of Charlotte in North Carolina, and you can see people that are homeless all the time. Again, the skeptic in me wonders how many of them are actually homeless and how many of them are actually grifters, but whatever, who knows? I'll never know. But there are, in fact, homeless people out there, and personally, I think that would suck. I know there are some people that actually choose that lifestyle. I've heard people talk about that before, and hey, if that's what they want to do, then good for them, I guess. But I like having a roof over my head. I'm very, very appreciative of that, because I'm a bitch. I don't like having to deal with the elements. I like my air conditioning and my heat, and I like to apply those how I want to. Okay, moving on. This is going to be my last set of squats here. You can do 1 or 2 reps of these. I'm just going to do 1 or 2 sets of these. I'm just going to do 1 set. This is about a 9 on the RPE, so I will stop 1 rep short of failure. Seven. One more. I think I probably could have gotten 2 more reps there. I got to 8, and 8 is what you're supposed to do. I think maybe I fell into the mental trap of, okay, I got to 8, I'm good. I probably should have done 1 more, but as you can tell, I'm still definitely at an RPE 8 or 9. Which is good. That's what I'm looking for. One reason I like weightlifting so much is because it makes me think or feel like I'm doing cardio. When you go really hard in a set and you're trying to breathe properly and brace properly, maybe I'm not doing a very good job of that, but sometimes you come out huffing and puffing like you were running. All right, moving on to pull-ups here, and I'm doing something that I think is kind of fun because it's more challenging, and I don't have to do weighted pull-ups with these. I am doing L-sit pull-ups, and I am not a strong calisthenics athlete whatsoever. So these are very challenging for me, and it's like I'm adding a vest on anyway. So yeah, I will do L-sit pull-ups as many as I can while actually doing an L-sit. And then I will do, raise knee, just pull my knees up like this as much as I can. And then I'll just drop my knees, because most of the time my core and my legs and stuff give out before I'm actually done doing the pull-ups. So yeah, just try and do as many of those with good form as I can. Oh, and good form is extremely questionable when it comes to L-sit, because like I said, I'm not good at them. Eight. 9. 10. Okay, I was wrong. I was able to maintain at least the knee up position the whole time. That's only the second time I've actually done that. Last time I was not able to do that. But hey, noob gains, beginner gains, gotta love it. That's a really fun aspect of fitness to me, is there's always something new that you can try, and there's always something new that you can absolutely suck at. And then you get to have that feeling of beginner gains, of wow, I'm progressing very quickly, and I'm getting stronger in that move or sport very quickly. And it's addicting. It's a good feeling. Another good aspect of those L-sit pull-ups is it really isolates your back and helps keep good form. Good luck trying to kip while you're in an L-sit position. You're just not going to. In regard to these NDE stories I'm listening to, I think other than the stories themselves, the thing that makes me question them the most are the comments that people leave down below. Things like, I'm a psychic, and that's exactly what I see when I'm using my psychic powers. Just like, oh gosh. You know, there's one thing that it does seem that we have a lot of evidence about, is that people that claim to be psychic aren't psychic. You know, they can't see into the future. And in today's age, there's lots of cameras and people that can break things down to just show that they're just tricking people. So in the moment of listening to that story, I can kind of wrap my head around believing it, and then you go down and read the comments about, yes, this is my psychic experience too. It's kind of off-putting for me personally. 3, 6 or 7. 8. 9. Oh. 6. Woo. 6. 7. Okay, it's really hard to kip when you're in an L-sit, but it's a lot easier to kip when you have your knees up. That's it for today, though. I would really love it if you let me know what you think of NDEs. Again, I think they're very fascinating. Do you think that they're legit? Do you think all these people are charlatans? Do you think that it can be scientifically explained somehow? I don't know. I hope I get some feedback on that. I look forward to the day when this channel grows enough to where there are going to be all sorts of conversations that are happening in the comment section. Maybe this is the video where that happens. Maybe you'll start that. And I would be very grateful. I would feel a lot of gratitude towards you if that happened. But if not this video, then in a future video, because I'm not going anywhere. So people just, need to come to me, because that's the goal, that's the plan. Just stick with this long enough to where, I make lots of new friends. I meet lots of new people. But anyway, thanks for watching to this point. If you have, I really, really, really appreciate that. And hopefully you'll come back next time. Thanks.